1992 by Deseret Book. In chapter 3, pages 13, 14, and 15, Twetnus notes that from the day the Book of Mormon was published in 1830, some readers have been struck by its distinctive modes of expression. And it really does have those, no question. Many of the oddities thought at first to be signs of ignorance or awkwardness, they turn out on closer inspection to be traces of ancient authenticity. Now this is what I love about John Twetnus. I mean, Nibley was an astonishing erudite and deep scholar. But he would only open doors and glance into the room and tell you, there's something interesting in there. There's a colophon. And then he would move on. Well, John Twetnus, with his meticulous Book of Mormon scholarship, he would go through that door and into the room and explore the room. And he found treasure troves of information on the colophons themselves in the Book of Mormon. Colophons in the Book of Mormon illustrate this idea of an index to ancient authenticity. Isn't it interesting that the Book of Mormon has been accused? They say, well, you start reading this junk, and it's really awkward English. I mean, golly, my 6-year-old could write better than this. Well, yes, as English, but as a translation document, some of the awkwardness is based on Hebraisms, Egyptianisms, colophons. It's based on merismus and analogy, various different types of literary techniques that the ancient authors used, but that we in America, reading our English materials, have never ever even heard of. So being translated as an ancient literary device, it does present awkward English. But when it's translated back into the text, in the ancient materials, it's fabulous. So this is interesting. Every time you find something odd or weirdly worded in the Book of Mormon, pay attention. Mark that passage. It could have some serious indications of the antiquity of the Book of Mormon. And Twetnus says colophons do this. And they do, because they're so odd. Several of the books in the Book of Mormon begin or end with a statement by the author certifying that he is the author of the work. Often he tells what in the following pages or explains the marks at the end of what has been said. For example, the Book of Enos begins, I, Enos, will tell you of the wrestle which I had before God. And the Book of Mormon begins, I, Mormon, make a record of the things which I have both seen and heard. Mormon 1 and 1. Beautiful colophons. You got to remember, the Book of Mormon was one long paragraph. Chapters and verses and subheadings and so on and so forth. All of that's modern convention. There was no punctuation in the Book of Mormon. None. It's just one solid mass of writing. So the way they distinguish this as they handed the record down from father to son is with the colophons. They both began and ended their record with their colophon, and then you knew, okay, well, now Mosiah's writing, or, now Enos is writing, and so on and so forth. A beautiful, ancient device. And he says, I, Jacob. Similarly, the book of Jacob ends with, I, Jacob, make an end of my writing. Jacob 7:27. Dozens of editorial entries like these are found in the Book of Mormon. So it shows a steadfast, consistent use of the ancient colophons. There's no slipping in with any modern 19th century literary style here with the Book of Mormon. This is another index to its reality as an ancient book coming from ancient times. And of course, Nephi is the one who set the pattern. At the start of 1 Nephi, a heading that is not marked with first numbers begins an account of Lehi and his wife Sariah and his 4 sons, and it ends, I, Nephi, wrote this record. and so on and so forth. These serve as markers. The colophons serve as markers and natural divisions in the text. In a way, they take the place of paragraphs and punctuation and other modern writing devices not used in antiquity. We find this in the Book of Mormon consistently. It's beautiful. Many Book of Mormon writers, including Mormon, followed Nephi's lead. Now I'm on page 15 here. Mormon provided prefaces for each of the books that he himself abridged, except Mosiah, for which the Words of Mormon is an expanded prologue of Mosiah. In addition, he wrote introductions to chunks of original material that he incorporated unchanged into his ongoing abridgment of the plates of Nephi. And among the most obvious such spots are his comments preceding the record of the Zenith colony before Mosiah chapter 9 and before Alma's account, which starts with Mosiah 23. This is Mormon, the abridger, putting this information in. Finally, Mormon lets the reader know at Mosiah 29, verse 47, that the book of Mosiah is done and that the orientation of the record is shifting. So this idea, these colophons, are not consistently presented or clearly identified in modern printed editions of the Book of Mormon, but readers can watch for them and see how they act as guides through this compilation of records that have been drawn together from many authors and from various different plates and records. You have plates of ether, you have the Jaredite plates. It's fascinating how the complexity of the large plates and the small plates of Nephi, the complexity of the Book of Mormon is not so simple. It's extremely interesting. This feature of the text shows not only the remarkable complexity of the Book of Mormon, also the great efforts made by its writers and editors to make the record as clear as possible. Mormon wanted us to understand his interpretation of the events, not that it was Mosiah or Nephi or Enos or whoever it was he was discussing. There's a basic honesty involved with the writers and the record keepers in the Book of Mormon, and the colophons help keep this consistency. It's remarkable. Now, in the book Rediscovering the Book of Mormon, insights you may have missed before, and I promise you, if you haven't read this book, you've missed several insights. This is by John L. Sorensen and Melvin J. Thorne. This book is an outstanding book, 1991. And again, chapter 4, John Twetness, that is, has a chapter on the colophons in the Book of Mormon where he describes the colophons in the Words of Mormon, in Mosiah, in Alma, in Helaman, and in 3rd and 4th Nephi. And his summary is important to understand. Knowing the details of all of these editorial comments is not necessary for readers primarily concerned with reading the text for its spiritual value, but they do have value. And here's the issue. Here's the point with this. Students of historical documents and ancient literary forms are provided valuable clues to the process of writing and the process of compiling the record. Furthermore, the large number of these statements in such intricate relations, both with each other and in the overall structure of the Book of Mormon, teach us something else. They make it obvious that they came from the ancient writers, not from Joseph Smith. Considering the way Joseph dictated the book to scribes, for the most part in a matter of weeks, there was no revising done after his dictation. He only dictated it once. He never went over anything twice. There's no revising what he had dictated. We should realize that he himself could not have come up with this complicated set of prefaces and summaries. It is unlikely that he would go to the trouble to insert anything like them. They're not required to move the story along, actually. It is also most unlikely that while dictating, he could keep in mind what he had promised in the prefaces, and then to remember to close off so many sections neatly with such good summaries. He does this in many of the books in the Book of Mormon. Much more believable are the claims in the Book of Mormon itself. It is a record done by ancient writers working with written materials over long periods of time. That's the value of understanding a colophon. In the Journal of Book of Mormon Studies, this is for Volume 2, Number 2. This is for the fall of 1993. Even Thomas W. McKay discussed some aspects of Mormon as an editor of the overall plates that we received of the Book of Mormon, a study in colophons, headers, and source indicators.